So today we will learn on chapter 3, lymphatic system. So at the end of this lecture later, you should be able to define the functions of the lymphatic system and to describe the fluid inside the lymphatic system that refer to the lymph and compare with the blood and the tissue fluid. And then you should be able also to describe the lymphatic vessel, the duct, and also the pathway. And also you should be able to describe the structure and the functions of the lymph nodes of the lymphatic system and describe also the functions of the lymphatic or organs such as spleen, thymus, tonsils, and also Peyer's patches. So, what is a lymphatic system? Lymphatic system used to return the fluids that leak from the blood vascular system back to the blood. So last week we already learned about cardiovascular, right? In which at the pulmonary system, okay, here should be the lung, and the pulmonary capillary network will absorb the oxygen from the lung into the pulmonary capillary, and then from pulmonary capillary will goes to the pulmonary vein, and it will transport the oxygenated blood into the left atrium, and then goes to the left ventricle, and it will draws out from the heart through the aorta, and aorta will transfer into the arteriole and goes to the capillary through the systemic circulation, in which here what will happen, oxygen gases, there is changes in the gases between the oxygen and also carbon dioxide, in which the oxygen will transfer into the cell or the tissue. Meanwhile, the carbon dioxide will diffuse in into the capillary network, and then it goes to the venules, which carry the deoxygenated blood, and then the deoxygenated blood goes back through the right side of the heart through the vena cava, and then the heart will pump out the blood back to the lung through pulmonary artery. So, therefore, during the gases exchange at the pulmonary artery or the systemic capillary network, okay, there are some fluids, okay, that will leak from these blood vessels, okay, and the functions of the lymphatic capillary is that to absorb the leak fluids and return it back to the heart, okay. And lymphatic system consists of three important parts. The first one is that the network of lymphatic vessel. Okay, as you can see here, we have a network of lymphatic vessel. And the second one is the lymph. The lymph is referred to the fluid inside this vessel. And last but not least is the lymph nodes. As you can see here, the one that look like a nodule here, the lymph node is function to cleanse the lymph, okay, to cleanse the fluid as it pass through the lymph nodes, okay. Later I will explain how does the lymph node cleanse the fluid inside the lymphatic vessel. So, therefore, lymphatic system is a system that used to transport the lymph or the excess interstitial fluid from the blood vessel, from the tissue to the vein, okay, back to the heart. So, it also used to produce and houses the lymphocyte, in which this lymphocyte is responsible for the immune defense later, okay, and also it functions to transport the fat from our intestine to back to the blood. So first we're gonna look one by one on the important characteristic of the lymphatic system. The first one is the lymph, which refer to the interstitial fluid inside the lymphatic vessel. okay, in which lymphatic vessel carry this lymph, and they have few properties that you have to know. The first one is that lymphatic vessel is actually one-way system toward the heart. Okay, one-way system toward the heart, in which it will absorb the interstitial fluid, okay, or the lymph, from the lymph capillary, and goes to the nodule, the lymph nodes, it cleansing the bacteria, okay, the cancer cell, and etc. And it will goes back to the heart through a one-way system, as you can see over here, which is through the lymph duct. And then, however, lymphatic system, okay, do not have a pump system like the heart, okay. Therefore, there is no pump. So, how does the lymphatic vessel transfer, okay, conveying the fluid, in which they will move the lymph toward the heart by two means. The first one is through the contractions of our skeletal muscle, okay, during your breathing or respiratory, during your respirations. And the next one is contraction by the contractions of the smooth muscle in the vessel through the movement. And then the lymph, okay, the fluid inside the lymphatic vessel, the lymph used to return back inside the lymph. They are water, protein, blood vessel, bacteria, viruses, cancer cells, cell debris, and etc. Okay, so later only water, protein, and blood vessel will transfer back to the blood system. Meanwhile, the bacteria, the viruses, cancer cell, and cell debris will be cleansed by the lymph nodes later. Okay, so lymphatic vessels, there are two types of lymphatic vessel. The first one is the lymphatic capillaries, and the second one is lymphatic ducts. So lymphatic capillaries, similar with blood capillary, which are the smallest one, and it can be found within most of the organ in our body, and it contain interstitial fluid, the protein, microorganism, and also fat that can enter into the lymphatic vessels. Okay, this one. Okay, so meanwhile, the lymph duct over here, the one that very close to the heart, okay, it formed from the merging capillaries. As you can see here, there are lots of the lymph capillaries, and that they will transfer all the fluid or the lymph into the lymph nodes, and then all the filtering fluid later, okay, will turn back into the blood system, okay, through the lymph duct, and merging from several lymphatic capillaries. And the structure of the lymph duct is similar in the structure to the vein. And of course, as I mentioned earlier, the lymph is filtered through the lymph node over here. So, okay, now similar also is what I mentioned earlier. Okay, so the lymph capillary, how does they absorb the excess fluid? Okay, actually, this is one is the bigger image, the large image of the lymph capillary. As you can see over here, the walls of the capillaries is actually overlapped to each other, and they have a structure that we call as a flap-like mini valve over here. So, what will happen when the um, when the fluid inside the lymph capillary is not full, and the outside will produce a high pressure compared to the insides of the lymph capillaries. Therefore, okay, it will produce a higher pressure to open this mini valve and letting the fluid to get into the lymph capillaries. Okay, and then the higher pressure inside the lymph capillary later will push the mini valve to be closed. Okay, and this lymph capillary is anchored by the filament to the connective tissue. Okay, this one. And then um, therefore all of the collecting vessels of the lymphatic vessel function, of course, to collect the lymph from the lymph capillaries, and then it will carry the lymph to and away from the lymph nodes to the lymph nodes and away from the lymph nodes, and then it will return the fluid back to the circulatory system, which is to the vein near to the heart, through two pathways, either by right lymphatic duct or by the thoracic duct. Okay, as you can see over here, this is a lymph vessels and the entrance of the right lymphatic duct into the vein, the left side, the right side of the vein. Meanwhile, this one refer to the entrance of the thoracic duct, okay, which refer to the lymphatic duct into the left sides of the vein. Okay. And then next, lymph nodes. How does lymph nodes can cleanse or can filter the excess interstitial fluid from the blood? Okay, so lymph node can filter or cleanse because they contain a defense cells. Okay, that consists of macrophage and also lymphocyte. The um, one of macrophage is one um, macrophage is one of the important things in the immune system that used to engulf and also to destroy the foreign substances, and then in the lymph node also contain lymphocyte that will provide the immune response to the antigen. Okay, so this is how does the lymph node looks like. It looks like a kidney, okay, and it also contains two parts, consists of two parts similar with kidney, which are they having a cortex. Cortex is referred to the outer part, as you can see over here. This one is the dark purple here is referred to the outer part, okay, and it contains follicle, okay, that which refer to the collections of the lymphocyte, and inside part, okay, the inner part here is known as the medulla, and they contain microphage here, as you can see over here. Here, lymphocyte located at the cortex, macrophage located inside in the medulla. Okay, so how does the lymph enter the lymph nodes? Okay, so lymph or the interstitial fluid enter the lymph node through what we call as the afferent neuron. Afferent lymphatic vessels. This one, okay, afferent lymphatic vessel, and it will goes to the it will goes into the lymph nodes. However, they will flow through this one, as you can see over here, is very small pathway. Okay, this small pathway is known as a sinuses. Okay, and then after then they will be cleansed by the lymphocyte at the cortex, and the cells, the debris cells, cancer cell, and etc. will be engulfed by the macrophage in the medulla, and then they will filter or transfer the good um, interstitial fluid, the filter interstitial fluid, okay, and it will exit through the efferent lymphatic vessel, okay, goes to the lymphatic duct and back to the vein. And Then fewer number of efferent lymphatic vessel compared with afferent lymphatic vessel because they want to slow down the flow of the fluid from the lymph nodes. Okay, and there are few of lymphoid organs that are very important for the lymphatic system. Okay, as you can see here, we have a tonsil, the thymus inside the thorax, the spleen, okay, beneath the stomach, and also the pia in our intestine. So the lymphoid organs and tissues, they actually help to provide the structural basis of the immune system. Okay, and of course they play a very important role in the body defense mechanism. It includes, as I mentioned earlier, the spleen, the thymus, the tonsil, which refer to the site of the lymphocyte production. Now let's look one by one into the lymphoid organ. The first one is the spleen. Spleen is the largest lymphoid organs in our body that located at the left side of our abdomen, and spleen is actually responsible for the proliferations of the lymphocyte, and also it helps to filter the blood, destroy the worn out blood cells, form blood cells in the tissue, and also act as a blood reservoir. Okay, and next is the thymus. Thymus located at the low sides of our throat, okay, overlying the heart, as you can see over here. It functions at peak level only during our childhood, which it helps to produce the hormones which known as the thymosin that will later help to program for the maturation sites of the T lymphocyte. Next one is mucosa associated lymphatic tissue, that also known as a mouth. Mouth, is they act as a sentinel or the front layer, okay, that help to protect our respiratory and digestive tract, and this includes the mouth, include the tonsil, pia patches, and other small accumulations of lymphoid tissues. Okay, and first we're gonna look at the tonsil. Okay, here, this one. Okay, the tonsil is actually the small masses of lymphoid tissue around the entrance of the pharynx. Okay, and it helps to trap and remove the bacteria and other foreign materials through the when we eat the food and through the our inhalation. And there is a disease that called as a tonsillitis, which caused by the congestions with the bacteria. Okay, and last but not least is that pia patches. Pia patches you can find in small of the in the wall of the small intestine, and then it resembles the tonsils in structure. Okay, and it helps to capture and destroy the bacteria in the intestine. So I think that's all for today, class.